The rain had been falling since morning, but Ethan Walker did not seem to notice it. From the top floor of his glass penthouse, he watched the city lights blur behind the curtain of water. He stood completely still, like a man frozen in time. Tonight should have been peaceful, like every other night in his millionaire life. But inside him, a silent war was rising. Only a few hours ago, Ethan received a wedding invitation. His ex-fiancée's wedding invitation. Mia. The woman who had once promised him forever. Ethan had loved her deeply, blindly, like a man who believed love could never break. But she broke it. She left him for someone more powerful, someone more important, someone who could give her a better life. At least that is what she told him the night she walked away without looking back. And now she wanted him to attend her special day. Ethan did not laugh. He did not even get angry. He simply picked up the invitation, placed it on the table, and turned away. But somehow, the anger, the memories, the humiliation, they all returned at the same time, like a storm inside his chest. Tonight was the first night in years that Ethan felt alone again. He walked out of the penthouse, unable to stay inside the walls that reminded him of her fake promises. Driving into the rain, he let the city lights blur past him. He didn't know where he was going, he just wanted silence. But fate had a different plan. At the corner of an old street, right next to a dim streetlight, he saw a woman sitting on the cold ground. Her clothes were dirty, her hair wet, and her face hidden behind tired hands. People walked around her, ignoring her like she didn't exist. To them, she was just another homeless person in the city. But something about her made Ethan stop the car. Maybe it was the way she held a small box close to her chest, as if it was the only thing she had left in the world. Maybe it was the way she tried not to cry, even though her whole body was shaking. Or maybe it was because Ethan himself had once felt invisible, just like her. He stepped out of the car and walked toward her. The woman didn't look up until he placed his umbrella above her head. She lifted her face slowly. Her eyes were tired but brave. Broken but still burning with hope. "What are you doing here alone in this rain?" Ethan asked softly. The woman hesitated. She wasn't used to anyone speaking to her kindly. "My name is Leah," she whispered. "And I have nowhere else to go." Ethan looked at her for a long moment. He didn't see dirt. He didn't see weakness. He saw someone fighting her own quiet war. "Come with me," he said. Leah instantly shook her head. "No. I can't. People like me don't belong with people like you." Ethan almost smiled, but there was sadness in his voice. "Tonight, we both don't belong anywhere." For the first time, Leah looked directly into his eyes. Something in his gaze made her stand up. She held the small box tightly and followed him to the car. Inside the warm car, she still looked nervous. Ethan didn't question her. He could sense she had a story, a heavy one. The small box in her hands made him even more curious. She never let it go, not even for a second. As they drove, Leah stared outside the window like she was afraid the world would disappear if she blinked. Ethan finally asked, "What's in the box?" Leah's grip tightened instantly. "Something important," she said. "Something, from my mother." Her voice cracked at the word mother. Ethan didn't ask again. He drove her to his penthouse, ignoring the security guard's confused look. The elevator ride was silent. Leah kept her eyes on the floor. When the doors opened, she gasped. The penthouse was huge, filled with warm lights, beautiful furniture, and tall windows that looked over the glowing city. But Ethan walked past it all like none of it mattered. "Sit," he told her gently. "You're safe here." Leah sat slowly, like she feared she might break the expensive couch. Ethan brought her hot tea, dry clothes, and a blanket. For a moment, they simply sat across from each other, two people from different worlds, meeting in one strange night. Why did you help me? Leah finally asked. Ethan looked out the window again, the invitation still burning in his mind. Because, sometimes life gives us battles we don't ask for, he said quietly. And tonight, I didn't want to face mine alone. Leah lowered her eyes, understanding more than he expected. Then Ethan said something even he hadn't planned. Leah. I need you to come somewhere with me tomorrow. She blinked in confusion. Where? He turned toward her, his voice calm but filled with hidden fire. To a wedding. Leah's heart dropped. Why me? Ethan took a long breath. Because I need someone who doesn't pretend, someone real. Leah didn't know what he meant. But she felt something. A strange energy, a silent war beginning inside both of them. A war of truth. A war of emotions. A war that neither of them expected. And tomorrow, it would begin. Leah barely slept that night. She lay on the soft bed Ethan had offered her, staring at the ceiling, still unable to believe where she was. Hours ago, she had been sitting in the cold rain with nothing but a small box and a broken past. Now she was in a warm penthouse, wearing clean clothes, and safe for the first time in months. But safety was not the only thing that kept her awake. Ethan's last words repeated in her mind. I need you to come with me tomorrow, to a wedding. Whose wedding? Why her? What did he mean when he said she was real? Leah hugged the small box tightly and finally drifted into sleep, with questions still circling her mind. Morning sunlight entered the penthouse, touching Ethan's face as he sat on the couch. He had not slept either. He kept staring at the wedding invitation on the table. Not because he wanted to attend but because he needed to. He needed closure. He needed strength. But most of all, he needed someone who didn't want him for his wealth. And somehow, in one night, that person turned out to be the homeless woman he found on the street. When Leah stepped into the living room with slow, careful steps, Ethan stood up. Good morning, he said gently. She nodded, feeling shy. Good morning, and thank you again. You don't need to thank me, he replied. Just sit and eat something. Breakfast was simple toast, eggs, tea, but to Leah it felt like a luxury. She ate quietly, not wanting to appear greedy. Ethan noticed how polite she was, how careful, how humble. Most rich people he knew demanded more than this. Leah, who had nothing, appreciated even the smallest things. After breakfast, Ethan finally spoke about the one thing she feared. About the wedding, he said slowly. Leah put the cup down. You still want me to go with you? Yes. But why? She asked softly. I'm not, like your world. People will stare at me. Ethan shook his head. Let them stare. They already stare at me for different reasons. Leah didn't know what to say. He continued, I'm not taking you there to pretend to be something you're not. I just need someone honest beside me. Someone who has no interest in money. Someone who can remind me what real value is. Leah lowered her eyes. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not in years. She wasn't sure she deserved it. Ethan leaned forward and asked gently, can you trust me for one day? Leah thought of her lonely nights, her losses, the people who walked past her without seeing her as human. And then she thought of the man who stopped for her when no one else did. Finally, she whispered, I will go. Within hours, Ethan had arranged clean clothes for her. But he didn't choose anything too fancy, nothing that would make her uncomfortable. Instead, he chose a simple, elegant dress. A stylist was called to help, but Leah refused heavy makeup. I want to look like myself, she said quietly. Ethan nodded. That's exactly who I want you to be. As the stylist brushed her hair and adjusted her dress, Leah held the small box in her lap. The stylist smiled at it. Is it jewelry? She asked. Leah shook her head. It's my last memory. She didn't explain more. When Leah finally looked in the mirror, she gasped. Not because she looked rich but because she looked human again. Clean. Calm. Respected. For a moment, she touched her reflection softly, wondering if this was really her. Ethan watched from the doorway. For the first time since Mia left him, he felt something strange peace. You look perfect, he said. Leah blushed slightly, not used to compliments. Do I look like I belong there? You look like someone who belongs anywhere, Ethan replied. Before leaving, Ethan offered her a small pearl bracelet. Leah stepped back. I can't take that. It isn't payment, Ethan said. It's just so people don't judge you before knowing you. After a long pause, Leah accepted it. Inside the car, silence grew heavy but comfortable. Leah kept the box in her lap, fingers trembling slightly. Are you scared? Ethan asked. Yes, she whispered. I'm afraid your world will laugh at me. He looked at her. Then they laugh at me too. Because I'm the one taking you there. Leah looked at him with surprise. For the first time, she felt like she wasn't a burden, she was someone important. As the car approached the wedding venue, Leah's breath caught in her throat. The building was huge. Lights everywhere. Luxury cars parked outside. Rich people dressed in diamonds and silk walked inside with confidence. She felt small again. I don't belong here, she whispered suddenly. Ethan gently placed his hand on top of hers. Leah, you belong with me today. That's enough. His voice was calm, steady, warm. Leah closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and stepped out of the car with Ethan beside her. At that exact moment, people turned. Cameras flashed. Voices whispered. Ethan Walker, the millionaire. Arriving at his ex-fiancée's wedding. With a woman no one had ever seen before. And thus began the second chapter of their unexpected journey. A deal made not from money, but from pain, truth, and something that quietly felt like destiny. The grand wedding hall glowed under golden lights. Red carpets lined the entrance, and luxury cars sparkled like jewels in the parking lot inside. Chandeliers shimmered above tables decorated with crystal glasses and roses. Guests laughed and whispered, showing off dresses and jewelry, the air filled with elegance, and a little arrogance. Ethan Walker and Leah stepped out of the car. The crowd paused. People looked. Whispers spread instantly. Who is that woman with Ethan? Is that his new partner? She looks so different. But Ethan didn't care. His ex-fiancée, Mia, was standing at the top of the stairs, glowing in a designer gown, a perfect smile plastered on her face. She noticed Ethan immediately. Her smile faltered, just for a moment. That was enough. Leah felt the stares piercing her skin. Every eye seemed to judge her torn past, her simple dress, her quiet presence. Her hands clutched the small box tightly, as if it were her shield. Her heart raced. She had never imagined stepping into such a world, let alone being watched like prey. Don't worry, Ethan whispered. Just be yourself. That's all I need. Leah nodded, swallowing her fear. She took a deep breath and followed Ethan inside. The room fell silent for a few seconds as they entered. Guests stared openly, some with curiosity, others with barely hidden judgment. Mia's eyes widened when she saw Leah. She froze mid-step, realizing she had not expected Ethan to bring anyone, much less someone like Leah. Ethan's gaze met Mia's. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He just held Leah's hand, walking with quiet confidence. Every step seemed to tell a story not of revenge, but of dignity, of truth, of power found in unexpected places. Whispers ran through the crowd. She doesn't look like anyone from his world. but she has a presence, a strength. Is she a model? Leah could hear it all, but she didn't falter. Something inside her had shifted. She realized she wasn't just the homeless woman from the street anymore. She was someone who had survived, someone who had fought silently through storms. And for the first time, she walked into a room knowing she had a right to be there. Mia, finally recovering her composure, walked toward them, trying to hide the shock in her voice. "Ethan," she said, her tone carefully polite, "I didn't expect you to attend with her." "She's not her," Ethan said calmly. "She's Leah." Mia looked at Leah, trying to read her, trying to find a flaw, a weakness. But Leah only smiled slightly, calmly, without arrogance or fear. That smile caught everyone's attention. Even the groom looked surprised. Leah spoke softly, yet clearly. "Good evening. Thank you for letting me be here tonight." The room went quiet. The humility, the calm confidence, the honesty, it stunned the wealthy crowd. They expected arrogance, scandal, or drama. Instead, Leah's presence brought a quiet elegance no one could ignore. Mia's frustration grew. She tried again, sharper this time. "You shouldn't be here. This isn't your place." Leah tilted her head, her eyes steady. "I believe everyone has a place. And tonight, I'm here because he asked me to be." The silence that followed was heavy. Ethan's ex-fiancée realized she had lost control of the room. The whispers grew louder, but this time, they weren't mocking. They were curious. Respectful, even. Mia's perfectly crafted world suddenly felt fragile. A simple woman, who had nothing, had shaken it in minutes, not with wealth, not with power, but with truth and presence. Guests started noticing small details. The way Leah carried herself. The gentle kindness in her eyes. The fact that she didn't try to compete with anyone. It was striking. People whispered to each other. "She's real. She's brave. She's beautiful in a way money can't buy." Even the bridegroom glanced at her, confused but intrigued. He had never met anyone like her. Mia's perfect plan for admiration and envy had collapsed silently in front of her eyes. Ethan leaned close to Leah, whispering, "You're doing perfectly. Just stay calm." Leah nodded. Her hands were still slightly shaking, but inside, she felt strong. She realized this was not just a wedding. This was her moment of proof, not to anyone else, but to herself. She had survived. She had dignity. And she could face the world, even this world of glitter, wealth, and judgment. The first part of the ceremony began. Mia's smile, still forced, was tight as she walked down the aisle. The crowd's eyes followed her, but every few moments, they glanced back at Leah and Ethan. And each glance told a silent story. Money cannot buy respect. Power cannot buy courage. And pride cannot hide truth. Leah had arrived in this wedding hall as a homeless woman. By the time the ceremony began, she was no longer invisible. She was the silent storm that no one expected. And as Ethan held her hand and led her through the room, one thought echoed in her mind. This night would change everything. Not just for Mia. Not just for Ethan. But for Leah herself. A quiet war had begun inside the hall, a war of dignity, courage, and truth. And no one could predict how it would end. The wedding hall buzzed with excitement, but for Ethan and Leah, the world seemed smaller, quieter, and more intense. Guests whispered, glanced, and gossiped, but the two of them moved through the crowd like they were the only ones who mattered. Inside, Leah still clutched the small box she had brought from the streets. She hadn't opened it yet. For her, it was a symbol of her past, her pain, and the one connection left to her late mother. Ethan noticed her fingers trembling around it. He leaned close. "You don't have to hide it," he said softly. Leah shook her head. "It's personal." I understand, Ethan replied. But maybe tonight, it's time to share it. Leah hesitated. She had been invisible for so long, ignored by the world, judged by strangers. But something about Ethan gave her courage. She looked at him and nodded. Slowly, she opened the small box. Inside was a rusty, old necklace, a half-heart pendant. Her mother had worn it decades ago, and she had kept it after her passing, believing it held a kind of magic or maybe just memories. Ethan's eyes widened as he recognized the pendant immediately. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his own necklace, the matching half-heart. "Where did you get this?" he whispered, almost in disbelief. Leah shook her head. "It belonged to my mother. She used to work for your family years ago. I don't know why, but my mother kept this pendant safe, and now it's all I have left." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He remembered his own mother, a kind, gentle woman who had been best friends with Leah's mother before fate separated them. The two mothers had shared secrets, promises, and dreams. And now, destiny had reunited the children of those promises in the most unexpected way. For a moment, the noise of the wedding hall faded. Leah and Ethan stared at the pendants, feeling a connection deeper than wealth, beauty, or status. It was fate. It was history. And it was real. You're meant to be here," Ethan said softly, holding her gaze. "Not for revenge. Not for anything else. Just, because this was always supposed to happen." Leah blinked back tears. She had never imagined that her broken past could lead to this moment. Not respect, not friendship, not love. Just, connection. Something real, something pure. Meanwhile, Mia noticed the subtle exchange between them. Her perfect composure faltered once again. She leaned toward a friend and whispered sharply, "What's going on? Who is she really?" The friend shrugged, confused. "I don't know, but she looks important somehow." Mia's eyes narrowed. She had spent months preparing this wedding, making sure she looked perfect, making sure everyone admired her. And now, a simple woman in a modest dress had stolen the attention she thought she owned. Leah, sensing the stares and whispers, finally raised her head. She walked calmly toward Ethan, placing the pendant carefully around his neck before looking directly at Mia. "This necklace, and this moment, remind us that life is more than wealth, appearances, or control," she said softly. "It's about truth, connection, and respect." The room went silent. Every guest stopped talking. Even the groom, who had been trying to maintain a perfect smile, looked puzzled. Mia felt her face flush with embarrassment. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. She realized, painfully, that her carefully constructed image had crumbled before the simplest act of honesty and courage. Ethan, noticing Mia's frustration, finally spoke. His voice was calm but carried a quiet power that everyone could hear. "This woman has more strength in her heart than I've seen in a long time. She taught me something I almost forgot, that real value isn't money. Real value isn't appearances. Real value is courage, kindness, and honesty." The crowd murmured. Some nodded. Others stared in awe. Leah felt her chest swell, but not with pride, with a quiet, deep gratitude. She had survived hunger, pain, and neglect. And now, in the glow of chandeliers and whispers, she was recognized not for what she had lost, but for what she carried inside. After the ceremony ended, Ethan and Leah moved to a quiet corner. He finally asked the question he had avoided all night. "Why did you fight so hard, even when life seemed unfair?" he asked softly. Leah looked down at the pendant in her hand. "Because my mother taught me, even if the world ignores you, you must never ignore yourself. And, maybe because I hoped someone, somewhere, would see me as I am." Ethan took her hand gently. "I see you now. And I promise, I'll never let the world ignore you again." At that moment, the wedding hall seemed smaller, distant. The whispers, the judgments, and the stares didn't matter. Leah and Ethan had found something stronger than all of it: trust, connection, and a bond that destiny had quietly built over years. And as they stood there, side by side, the world outside the wedding hall realized that something remarkable had happened. A homeless woman and a millionaire, strangers in different worlds, had found a truth that no wealth, no power, and no pride could ever touch. The night had begun with whispers and judgment. It would end with a quiet revelation. The truth always finds a way. The wedding celebration was in full swing. Music played softly in the background, and guests chatted, drank champagne, and laughed. But for Ethan and Leah, the noise felt distant, almost unreal. They had survived the whispers, the judgment, and the surprise of the night. Now came the final moment, the moment where truth, courage, and love would collide. Mia, still fuming from earlier, approached them once again. Her smile was forced, her eyes sharp. "I still don't understand," she said coldly. "Who are you really? Why are you here?" Leah looked at her calmly, holding the small box tightly in her hands. She didn't hesitate. The courage she had built inside her over years of struggle had reached its peak. "I am someone who has known pain," Leah said softly, but firmly. "Someone who has been invisible to the world. But I am also someone who knows value, the real value. And tonight, I am here because he asked me to be. Not because I want to compete, or impress, or take anything from anyone. I am here because I exist, and I am proud of it." The room went silent. Even the loudest guests stopped talking, staring at Leah. The way she spoke, the confidence in her voice, the honesty, it was magnetic. Mia's smile disappeared completely, replaced with a sharp, uncomfortable flush. Ethan stood beside Leah, his hand gently brushing hers. He spoke in a calm, measured voice, but every word carried weight. "Mia, tonight isn't about envy. It isn't about revenge. Tonight is about truth. This woman Leah is someone who reminds us all what really matters. Courage. Kindness. Honesty. And strength of heart. Not wealth. Not status. Not appearances." Mia opened her mouth to argue, but no words came. The guests now looked at her differently. They could sense the arrogance, the pride, and the shallow perfection of her image. Leah, once invisible, had transformed the room with nothing but her presence and honesty. The groom, who had been awkwardly observing the scene, finally spoke. She's incredible," he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. "I've never met anyone like her." Leah looked at him, smiled politely, and returned her attention to Ethan. For a moment, the two of them shared a quiet glance, a glance full of understanding, trust, and something deeper that words could not describe. Later, as the evening continued, Ethan and Leah found a quiet corner near the garden. The city lights sparkled like stars, reflecting their own journey from rain-soaked streets and lonely nights to elegance, respect, and revelation. Ethan turned toward her, his expression serious, yet soft. "Leah, tonight, I saw you. Really saw you. And I realized. I don't just need you to remind me of truth. I need you, in my life. Always." Leah's heart skipped a beat. She had never expected this. She had never imagined that the millionaire who had rescued her from the rain would one day stand here, not as a savior, but as someone who wanted her for who she truly was. I don't know what to say," Leah whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "Then don't say anything," Ethan replied gently. "Just stay with me. Not because I helped you, not because of the past, but because I want you here. Because, you belong with me." Leah looked at him, feeling emotions she had never allowed herself to feel before: warmth, trust, hope, and a strange kind of joy. She finally smiled, a true, bright smile that reached her eyes. "Yes, she said softly. I will stay. But only if you never let me go back to being invisible. Ethan held her hand, his thumb brushing over her fingers. Never. You'll never be invisible to me again. Back in the wedding hall, the guests whispered among themselves. They had witnessed something rare, the transformation of a woman from the streets to someone who commanded respect simply by being herself. Some were amazed. Some were embarrassed at their own judgments. But one thing was clear, Leah had changed everything tonight, not through wealth or revenge, but through dignity, courage, and truth. Mia, defeated, stood silently by the side. She realized that no matter how much money, beauty, or power she had, it could never match the impact of someone who had faced life's struggles and remained kind and strong. Ethan and Leah, hand in hand, walked out onto the terrace. The cool night breeze brushed against them. Stars sparkled in the sky, reflecting the sparks that had formed between them over a single night, yet seemed to be a lifetime in the making. You know, Ethan said with a small smile, I never thought a night like this would teach me more than years of business meetings and luxury. Leah laughed softly. And I never thought I would feel seen. Truly seen. Ethan leaned closer. You've changed me, Leah. And I don't want this night to end without you knowing. I think I'm falling for you. Leah felt her heart swell. And I think I'm falling too. Under the soft glow of the city lights, they stood together, not as millionaire and homeless woman, not as ex and ex-fiancée, not as judgment and envy, but as two people who had found something rare, love born from pain, truth, and destiny. The wedding that had begun as a test of pride and revenge ended in a revelation of courage and connection. And as the music played softly in the distance, Ethan whispered, no matter what the world thinks, we have each other. Leah smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. Always. That night, a homeless woman and a millionaire didn't just chalk a wedding, they rewrote their own story. A story where love, truth, and courage mattered more than wealth, appearances, or expectations. And in that quiet victory, everyone watching realized one thing: the strongest hearts are sometimes hidden in the most unexpected places.